Hello! You know, I said I was going to build a grinder. Well, I've just started this week building a grinder. And here it is. It is a it's a grinder that will, it takes an 1830 belt up to 2000 and beyond, which is 6 foot belts, to maybe, don't know what 2000 is, 6'6" or I don't know, but it takes the 6 foot belts anyway. And I wanted to make a grinder that would be very versatile in what it would do, i.e. not only be good for making knives, but be, you know, good for just generally grinding steel. Because as you probably know, I like making a lot of different things, and I just my current grinder, which is my little grinder that you've probably seen over here. This fella's not too big. There it is. That's it. That's my little grinder, and it is a good little grinder, but it's only got short belts. I don't actually know what length the belts are, but they're that big. And the trouble with short belts is they wear very quickly. They really do. You know, you can say, mate, I'm making an axe. I will. Can't get my words out today. If I'm making an axe, I'll destroy 140 grit belt just grinding the axe. So it works out bloody expensive on belts, and because the belts are short as well, the plating does get warm because it's such a short belt. And this grinder obviously its speed is controlled by this pulley on the side, a little step pulley. So to change speeds, I'll lift the motor up, move the belt over. It's not a big problem, but I just want a grinder that I can dial the speed in with, and that's why I started building this one. Plus, it's going to be more versatile, because really all I can do with this grinder is use it like that. That is it, unless I built some kind of mounting method to tip it, but really no, forget that. So I started looking around on the internet for plans for grinders, and I couldn't really find any. I found plenty of pictures, and I found a few videos on grinders that other guys had built, and so I sort of settled on this one. And then once I'd settled on this and I started making this, I then found another video on a brilliant grinder which I wish I'd built, because it was a lot more simpler to build than this. But anyway, I was already well into this and thought, you know, it's fine, it's going to be good. Right, so what I've got is 10mm steel plates, and a lot of this steel, I already had this stuff, because it's sort of leftover from rocket stoves I've been building, and steel I've picked up from the steel works. When I've been buying my steel, I've just seen pieces they've had lying around, you know, as like offcuts, and I've just bought them thinking they'll come in for something, and you know they have. So I don't think it had to be 10mm. I think probably 5mm, 6mm would have done for the sides on the plates on these, but I had it, and I just, in my mind, I want a grinder that isn't vibrating and making a lot of noise. So I thought if I use this 10mm plate up, it's going to make the whole thing a lot more steady, a lot more robust, and you know, really solid, which is what I wanted. So this is all made with just steel I got from the local steel works, and all they sell is sort of construction steel, you know. They don't do any bright steel or any ground stock or any, you know, anything fancy. It's literally just drawn bar covered in bloody mill scale, which is horrible stuff. So if you're building something like this, the first thing you've got to do is get all the mill scale off, and you've got to sort of clean the faces up because it's quite rough, this bar. But that is these are 40 mil by, I think they're 6 mil, 7 mil thick, them things. I'll just check for you. I can find the little, what's it? I'm going into a bit of detail here because I know people are going to want to build this. Sorry, that's 10 mil as well. Yeah, so that's 40 mil by 10 mil flat, and I've tacked that on that side, just put tacks on it, and that was just to hold it in place because this whole thing is held together with bolts. I didn't want to weld it all up as an entity, because if I ever want to take it apart, you know, you can't do that. So these were just tacked on literally to hold them in place, and then the bolts clamp everything together tight. So they're welded on, and they're welded on to take the tool arms, which are 40 mil solid bar, and they literally, you know, they slide in and out of there, and they're held in place by a bolt which comes through from the plate on the other side. There's a hole in there to take the face plate mounted motor. There's just 4 bolts in there, and there's a little upstand there, and that takes the tracking arm assembly. I've had to use my plasma cutter on this. Obviously, without my plasma cutter, I couldn't have done a lot of this work. Obviously, you can't cut a round hole like that in a piece of steel with a jigsaw, not in 10 milli, but you could. You goddamn, you'd use a lot of blades trying to do it. And then this other side is the other side, which bolts onto there, and that's got the big cutout in it to sit over the motor like that. So that whole thing bolts together, and essentially you've got there your grinder body, if you like. Right, you stay there, fella. The motor I'm using, that's going to get smashed, isn't it? The motor is a 3 horsepower, 1.5 horse, which is going to be controlled by variable frequency drive, which is there. So I'm going to have to build a little box to put that in, a dust-proof box, so we don't get any grinding dust or rubbish in, and that'll be mounted hopefully about there when the grinder's set in place. And go on to the tool arms then. As I say, I wanted this all really solid, so I got some 40 mil steel, 40 mil box square, and I've had to do a bit of work grinding up because I say it's all just drawn bar and it's not very clean. So I've had to do a fair bit of work cleaning up these bars to get them flat, because as they come, they're kind of like that, which is they're not dead flat. They're quite nasty, really. But it's all I could get. So what I did for the plating head, just simply drilled a hole in there, threaded it. Everything here is M8 metric 8, which is 8 mil bolts, and I cut that out with the plasma cutter. It wants a bit of filing, that, because it's not as clean as it should be, and I maybe didn't just allow enough room with the cutter when I was cutting it. So the intention is that plating head will turn all the way up, and then they can use the roller, which will kind of be sticking out like that, so I can use that roller for grinding against as well. And we'll come on to the tracking arm, which is very over engineered. And that, I'm quite pleased with that. That's a little controller for the tracking arm, or an adjuster, and it's two pieces of steel welded on, and there's a hole drilled in that block of steel there, and there's two 6mm silver steel pins going into it so that it'll rock, and that's threaded again for an M8. Then we've got a bolt, an M8 bolt in there, which adjusts the tracking assembly. I wasn't looking forward to doing that because I thought it was going to be technically quite difficult to do, but it was actually really easy. So if you're building one of these, don't be worried about doing that at all, because it's, as long as you keep everything square, flat, straight, flush, plumb, true, you won't have a problem doing it. And a good pillar drill helps for drilling, like you know, getting everything really straight and parallel, and getting everything centered. So if you've got a good pillar drill, it helps. I welded the neck onto it, and then I just didn't want spaces in between this, because obviously that's only 10mm, and the space between there is 40mm. So I didn't want to, you know, 15-20mm spacers in there, because I thought there may be a tendency for that to rock and wobble a bit. So what I did, I found various bits of plate and steel, and I welded everything up so it's exactly 40mm thick. So there is absolutely no movement in that when it's all assembled. The tracking roller, which is yay, just bolts onto there. I've had to put a little spacer on that because I obviously couldn't know where everything was going to go before I assembled it. So that little plate just goes on there, and I'll probably end up welding that on as well, actually. So there is the tracking roller, and that sits on there, and it adjusts your tracking of your belt against your plating. There's my drive wheel, which is a crown drive wheel, and it mounts to keep the belt centered. If you've got a crown on your drive wheel, the belt will tend to stay in the center and not wander off each side. The tracking arm roller is also crowned for the same reason, and that goes on there. And that's me spinny for the belt. My tool rest, again, is just another piece of 40mm bar, which you can see I've got to clean that up a bit yet. It's a bit dirty. A good bit of cleaning, that thing. That's the difference. It goes in there beautifully, but you turn it round, you know, and it won't go in. So I've done a little bit of cleaning on that end. And them two just fit nice and flush together there as well. What else? I'm going to make different sets of arms for this. So I'm going to make another arm which has a tiny little, you know, probably what, ½ inch, if I can get down to ½ inch 3/4 of an inch roller on the end of it, so that, you know, the belt will come along and it'll have a tiny little roller on there, which is great for contouring in knife handles, and doing profiling on knives, and just grounding out little hollows in pieces of steel. So that I'll make another tracking arm. I want several different types of arm that I can literally just slide into this and put the belt on. That's another one of the wheels I'm having. That's a big 10-inch wheel that's also going to be mounted on the grinder as well, for grinding directly onto. What else? Yeah, that's it. What else? Right, so what I also want this grinder to do, as well as grinding, take that out of there. As well as grinding on that plane with the plating that way, I also want to be able to grind on that plane with the plating that way, and the tool arm like so, and then the rest, the tool rest, will be there, so I'll actually be able to use the grinder that way. I've wanted a grinder like that for a long time. I can actually, you know, use as kind of for squaring steel up, if you like, you know, for getting a nice square edge. I know you can do it the other way, but it's nice having a work table just there. So that will be me tool rest on this one, a nice big tool rest, because I don't only just make knives, as you probably know, I make a lot of different things. So I'm going to update this video when I've got a bit more done on this. So I'll come back to it in another video, because there's still quite a bit of work to do on this. But what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to assemble it all and put it together, and you can have a look at it and just see roughly what I'm getting at. I've looked at the prices of grinders like this, and you know, you're looking about £1,500 for something like this, and there's no way I can afford that or justify spending that. So far the costs on this are, I think it was about £100 for the motor. The VFD variable frequency drive was about 75 quid, something like that. The rollers have cost me, I think, 70 quid, I can't remember now. It was around 70 quid. That's for all the rollers and the big 10-inch wheel. So that's 5 rollers and the 10-inch wheel. And they're really well made, them, they're really nice. What are the costs? 17 quid on bolts. That's all the bolts I need. You think it'd be more, but yeah, that's all the bolts I need to put the whole thing into assembly. The cost of the steel, I already had it, but I would say probably about 50-60 quid for the steel, somewhere around there. Right, I'll get this together, guys, and you can have a look at it. I'll be back in a minute. Well, this is where I'm up to so far, and I've just put everything together. I've yet to put a spring in there to keep the tension on the tracking arm, and these bolts, these 3 bolts, want some kind of adjustment knob putting on them for adjustment, obviously. And they're the 2 tensioning bolts for the tool arms. That's the tool arm for the rest, and they just, you know, they just slide in and out there. and I'm putting a pretty big rest on here. I'm going to have something like that big because I don't only make knives, as you probably know. I make a lot of things, so there's times when I've wanted a really big, you know, platform to work on. They're grinding bits and pieces, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that really big plate on there. A nice big work area then. I'll take you around here and show you the other side. The tracking isn't, well, I think the tracking is absolutely bang on. It's centred in on the drive wheel. That's the adjustment there. If I back that screw off, it'll run the belt off just onto the edge of the wheels there. Just back it off a bit more, you can see it start running over. Tighten it up, goes back. So I'm pleased with that, that's all worked out really well. I've got a few bits and pieces to tidy up on here. I've got to build the stand for it, because this whole thing is going to swivel. A couple of plates I just managed to cut before it started raining. Which way around do they go? Like that. They're going to be welded onto that, so that, and then the whole thing is going to be built up on a stand. So that will sit there, and then the grinder is going to rotate, so that the whole thing turns over, and then this plating on the front will be a horizontal plating. So I'll be able to just take the tool arm out, turn it round, and my tool rest will be there then, that way, so I can turn the whole thing over. I've got to wire up my nemesis yet, which is the VFD. As I said before, I'm okay with the wiring. There's the damn thing there. I'm okay actually wiring it up, but it's the parameters, setting all the parameters and everything that I struggle with. And my last VFD that I put on the bandsaw, it had a speed controller there, a little knob. And when this one turned up, there's no pissing knob on it there, so I've been trying to read up and see how I can change that, because I'm pretty sure that the speed adjustment is on them two buttons there. I don't like that. Don't like it. I want a dial so I can dial the speed in. So I think I'm going to have to get a potentiometer, I think it is, and also wire that into the VFD as well. So that's harder work than building the damn grinder. But that's it for now, fellas. Anyway, that's me grinder. See it all there. Tool arm, everything nice and solid. Nice big grinder. It'll take belts from 1830, which is 6 foot, up to 2000, which is probably, I don't know, 6'6" is it, and beyond that. It'll take a pretty big wide range of belts. Say spring on there. You can see how much adjustment the tool arm has got. Just have to undo that. Or how much adjustment the plate and head has got. You know, I can come way out to there. I'll go back to there. I say the tool arms are all adjustable as well. So what I'll do, I'll come back when I've got the stand made, the swivelly stand, and I think I'm going to also put this grinder on a movable bench so that it's not fixed in one place in the workshop. I can kind of put it out, move it around. If it's a nice day I can push it outside, I can do some grinding outside in the fresh air. Yeah, and I'll look to getting this damn VFD wired up as well. I can get the motor spinning and see how everything performs. Okay guys, if anyone wants plans on this thing, I'll be able to do some plans on it. I'll be able to take some measurements off all this before I finally assemble it. I couldn't find, I built this off pictures that I found on the internet really, and other grinders I'd looked at on YouTube and this, that and the other, but I couldn't find any dimensions and sizes for anything, so pretty much just had to sort of work it all out. The guy I got the wheels off, very nice chap. I'm sure he'll supply anyone with wheels, and if he's okay I'll contact him. If he's okay with it, I'll put a link in the description box down below where you can get the wheels. Something else I'm going to put on this is this whoa yay big wheel. So that the two arm will come out of there. Don't think that one will go in because it's not been ground up as much, but oh yeah it will. But yeah, that big wheel's going to go onto there as well, so I'm going to have a huge wheel on the front for grinding, hollow bevels and such. I've got to get some more of this bar. It's 40mm solid bar. The trouble is, I should have got maybe bright steel or ground stock or something, because this is, I think it's just kind of drawn bar and it is not square. It's kind of rounded on the faces, so I had a heck of a job just kind of squaring this up. You can see I've done a lot of sanding and a lot of cleaning up on that one, just to try and get, you know, a flat face on that side and a flat base for the actual guide to the bar to run on. So I'm gonna have to do the same with that one. You can see the centre there is proud where I just touched it onto the grinder, and again there on that edge. So I'm gonna have to do a bit more work on that one as well, because this my local steel guy, he only does this just drawn bar. He doesn't do anything fancier than that. And the plate, it's all mild steel plate, and it's just general construction steel really, nothing engineering-ish. So right, I'll come back when I've done a bit more progress, and I'll see you soon guys. Thanks for watching, see you later.